Starfield Shattered Space, the best slop the galaxy can mulch. It's gonna be amazing. Are you ready to experience true Bethesda quality? Oh yes, I am.
So this morning, Bethesda dropped Shattered Space. This promises to be a narrative-heavy expansion with handcrafted environments to explore, interesting consequences to your decisions, and
there are no consequences to any decisions. We already know that that's a fact, by the way. The dialogues don't even change. No matter what you do, dialogues don't even change. And this, by the way, I love it. They're like, how can we make House Maroon special because they're special and autistic? Oh, I know. Let's give them this strange-looking toga thing that's not even full-on on equilibrium. Let's make all of them wear that for no reason. And you know what else is gonna work? Face tattoos. Moronic space tattoos. And let's not explain any of that. Why any of this even matters in their culture. This is so pathetic.
much more. I started playing it earlier today on stream, and we played about an hour of it there. Just look up Luke Stevens Live in the search bar if you are interested in seeing that whole supercut that we did. But after that stream ended at roughly 2 in the afternoon, I booted it up again and I started playing it off stream, and I finished it at like 5 p.m. I'm a little shell-shocked. Granted, I was mainly just doing like the main story, but it's because...
Okay, so people were leaving in the comments and telling me that this expansion is a whopping 3 to 4 hours long, depending how fast you are, and it costs $30. That is beautiful. That is perfect.
Because the main story is like pressing this urgency, and I was like, okay, I know, I'll help you guys out. I'll help your city. But I finished it very quickly, and I don't know if that's just because I happened to make story choices that skipped over a ton of content, or if it actually just...
No, like hell. Dude, anyone who buys the idea that the Starfield Shattered Space has consequences or choices, it needs to get examined.
Is that short? Granted, I'm particularly high level, but like this ended up being a very short expansion for the main story, at least, which I found disappointing. Now, to be fair, there is still a good amount of stuff for me still to do. This save file I'm on right now happens to be from...
Yeah, for example, walk about around the city that literally makes no goddamn fucking sense. Whoever made this is just purely stupid, okay? There's low IQ individuals at its finest, because nothing makes sense here. Like, look at this, where I'm in front. Look at this. What the hell is this? Why? It's just cables everywhere, exhaust ducts everywhere, random tarps on the floor. They learned nothing.
Earlier in the game, because once you finish it, there are potentially, depending on how you...
Look at this. There's lights here. There's lights there. Why? There's lights hanging off of the things. It's just... There's candles. What's the point of the fucking lights if there's candles? Why are candles there? It makes no sense. There's braziers also here. Why? Why do you have lights and braziers at the same location? Like, whoever designed this deserves the worst in life.
Choose to go about things. Changes to all of this that could affect it, so I'm not going to risk spoiling that, so I've loaded into an earlier state to avoid that. But having said that, there are some unique weapons, but it's important to note there are no new companions as far as...
There's 2 unique weapons, which both of whom are shit.
As I can tell, there are no new, like, parts for vehicles or habs or anything like that. It is very limited in terms of new content. And
you know what they added? They added a feature that they removed from the game, then they re-added and sold it into the expansion. That's what they have for ship design. That's the new feature. Something they removed from the base game when the base game launched, and then re-added in the DLC, and now you're paying for it.
Mechanics. It's basically just more Starfield.
Also, someone actually made a very good point. I never thought about this, honestly. But look at this. I didn't think about this. But I think that someone commented about this. That this is old paint. This is supposed to be old paint. And this is now I never talked about this because I never thought about it. And I kind of assumed okay, it's like yeah, sure, old paint, yeah, there's space debris hitting it. Okay, this makes sense. But then I understood, wait a minute, no. This is just some idiot at Bethesda who thinks that when paint gets old, this is how it looks. Just one more point on Starfield not making sense. It's beautiful.
It's basically just more Starfield, which for some people is going to be great, I'm sure. For me,
those people should check themselves and remove them from society and probably wreck themselves and remove them from the server. Listen, I don't trust anyone who says I'm a Starfield enthusiast and enjoyer, okay? You're instantaneously just making me go on alert.
Hearing that this is just more of what we've been playing for a year, basically, with very, very minimal changes, that's a little disappointing. There are some things like, oh, there are these low gravity bubbles that you can jump into, but that alone is like this.
Stupid.
This is all it is. It's used maybe once or twice. And beyond that, there's just nothing else done with it. It's just like, oh, yep, we did this thing that we can use a couple of times, and then that's it. Like that's all they are. Now, there are some interesting things that they do. In the first hour or so of the expansion, they do this kind of cool thing on a space station that I won't spoil other than just saying it is a straight up carbon copy of a movie you might recognize from the 1990s that actually flopped pretty hardcore. And the movie's called Event Horizon. I won't go into the plot of this just in case you want to try it yourself. And
I think I have seen it, but I don't remember it.
You don't want spoilers, but straight up, this expansion is just Event Horizon. Once you get past that, you end up on this little planet area. You can see there's all sorts of little points of interest that are here. There's even like a dam down here. There's, of course, the city, quote unquote. It's more like...
By the way, all modern things that are not disasters nowadays are effectively just bootleg copies of old things. Someone was talking about this, about World of Warcraft, the War Within. That the Emperor of the new Lamplighters, or whatever the fuck they are supposed to be called, is literally a copy of Sigmar from Warhammer. 1-for-1 a copy of Sigmar. That's what these companies are doing. They're just taking established things and copying it and trying to make it so people don't notice. It's funny.
Like a village or a town in scale with maybe like 50 to 100 residents, most of them named citizen or scientist or guard, but still it's a relatively small environment for you to explore, even if it is handcrafted. There is also something called an unoccupied house, which is this thing right here, and you get access to it after you finish the main story if you desire. So there's that, a new place.
You are forced to join House Varun through their religion, by the way, because that's great gameplay design and role playing. Yay, forced.
For you to live, that's kind of cool. But honestly, as I played through this, I was just kind of surprised to see that there were very few risks taken here. I mean, it is through...
He's just chilling and he means none. He can't say negative things because then he's... Again, Luke Stephens, one of the most known shills and most known, gonna speak about things that everyone accepts. Yeah, he just doesn't want to ruin his chances for, an Elder Scrolls 6 review copy or something like that. It's pretty funny.
Going through just more Starfield, except now you're kind of forced into a religion focused around a snake dude, and I can like appreciate having a cult in the game, but it's also supposed to be an RPG, so it feels a little weird to force players to join a cult to start the quest line. Like straight up, if you try to avoid joining the cult and you're like, maybe I will later if you guys convince me, that's just not a thing. You have to join the cult, otherwise the NPCs just stand around waiting for you to decide to join. It's a...
Well, obviously, again, it's not like Bethesda knows what role-playing is anymore.
Little forced.
Arguably, they never did.
Honestly, but if you turn your brain off and go through it, you can, I guess, just enjoy it. But honestly, I was just surprised at how much this felt like a paid mod instead of an expansion. Yeah, big paid mod, but it doesn't feel like they're really cranking the dials or doing anything really different. It's just more of the same. They certainly use a lot more color. They use reds, pinks, and oranges a lot, especially.
Holy shit, a whopping 3 colors. What a time to be alive. They're using the red tint from Fallout 76. Wow.
Actually, in some of the outskirts of the initial city that you're in for some of the quests you'll be going on to align the houses. But I think that like it doesn't look particularly amazing. It's just finally some color in a game that typically is very gray and green. And so I'm glad it's here. It's a welcome change and adjustment for sure, but I don't think that this expansion in terms of art direction is...
Yeah, I call bull. The red tint is just annoying.
Particularly compelling, at least not for me. Following in the vein of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, there's also many different instances where you are tasked with shooting these glowing blue zits in order to pass certain objectives. I don't know what it is about like modern AAA game development, but there are so many games that just task you with popping big blue orbs or purple orbs in order to progress through quest objectives. I don't know what it is. I guess it's just the new meta, but I find it really funny that it's even here. I also won't go into too many spoilers or anything for obvious reasons, but as far as the main story of the expansion is concerned, this is a far cry from Far Harbor. I found Far Harbor to be a really...
Yeah, dude. The people who bought the idea that magically somehow Ubisoft is not Ubisoft. We're talking about Ubisoft a lot in the recent days. The idea that Bethesda is going to return to class with Far Harbor or Fallout 4, which is, by the way, in my opinion, the second best Fallout experience. New Vegas is obviously the first one. Yes, I'm a New Vegas Sandy because it's simply the best experience. Shut the fuck up. And 2 is Fallout 4, and 3 is Fallout 3. Those are that is the unquestionable sequence of best Fallout games. Anyone who bought the idea that the current Ubisoft can actually nail anything even close to the quality of Fallout 4 is just off their rocker, okay? They're off their meds.
Really interesting expansion. It was the original expansion for Fallout 4, and it explored topics of like synth behavior. If you're a synth and you don't even know it, are you still human, or should you be treated as human, or are you still just an android and your life doesn't matter? How would that work if you never even really knew? Sort of a Schrodinger's synth situation where, you know, are they a synth or are they not? Are they both or are they neither at the same time? Who knows? It was a really interesting expansion narratively, and it answered some of the questions that were not explored in the base game of Fallout 4, and that's what I loved about it so much. And I was hoping that this would be that expansion, but for Starfield. However, instead what we got is
instead what you got was stupid tattoos.
Expansion that's focused around a pretty bizarre cult of people that talk in a shockingly monotone...
Oh god, what the fuck is this? Oh my god, this is just wrong. Okay, the person who said that the new expansion has even worse character designs than the old one, you're right. You're right. Wow. Again, the tattoos. It's you can't just add a you can't just make a different culture of people by giving them face tattoos that look stupid. Okay? You need to explain this. All we know about House Varun is combat is, you know, challenging someone to a duel to the death is reasonable, but at the same time, you shouldn't fight because that's bad. None of this makes sense.
Tone fashion. And while the actors and actresses were doing their absolute best with the scripts that they had in front of him, I still just think it's painfully dry. Like, so much of this, you get the little bit of exposition you need in the first 15 seconds, and then there's 5 minutes of just dry, I appreciate you asking, but honestly, ever since I was a boy. Already you're falling asleep, and I'm imitating that. Imagine what it's actually like. And of course, it's Starfield, so it's really buggy and weird stuff like this happens. Characters will talk to you while facing away or having other NPCs stand in between them. It's really, frankly, bizarre. And this is when the game is working properly. There's there's a bunch of side quests that are just straight up bugged, or you'll go all the way through it for...
I want people to talk about the side quests, because the thing is, the main quest is going to be the most polished thing in this expansion, but the side quests are probably where everything just turns to complete shit.
45 minutes, and then the end state is just soft locked, so you're just screwed, and you have to go all the way back to a previous save before the quest line in order to reset and basically try again. It's really, really disappointing to see that even now in 2024, they are still struggling to get quests to work properly in this game. It's ridiculous. All of this is made all the worse and frustrating when you look at the fact that, like, Bethesda did not allow reviews for this to be made. They did not send out review codes intentionally, I think, because they knew how short it was. They knew that it didn't really offer much that was compelling or interesting, and they knew it was buggy. So they knew it would review poorly, and they probably would have people saying this isn't worth $30, honestly. And then nobody would bother buying it in addition to this, you know, with whatever day one hype there is, even though I think most people forgot that this was coming out. And I think it's honestly because most of the people that were going to play this expansion probably already bought the deluxe whatever premium edition back late last year. I think they already had this guaranteed as part of that because they had the expansion included. So BGS effectively just didn't need to bother winning anybody over. They already had people convinced that they were going to play it because they already bought it. They took their money up front. So why would they need to put a lot of extra effort into creating something massive, something super polished? Why bother when they've already gotten your money? They just don't need to bother themselves with it. And listen, like, it's not downright awful. I've played worse expansions. Pretty much everything they've added to Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League after launch has been pretty horrible, but it's just more Starfield. Like, there's nothing...
Other things being shit doesn't excuse this thing from being shit. That's the reality.
Else to really say. For $30, I find it ridiculous in terms of pricing. I don't know how they could...
For $30, you can become a heroin addict, which seems a better waste of time than playing Starfield.
Justify that price point. But if you have it included, it might be worth booting up at least for the first hour or two before it gets really dry. But I mean, paying $30 out of pocket for this, I think, is a stretch. I will say there's some interesting set pieces. There's even a relatively interesting thing towards the very end of the expansion based on the choices you make. There's different ways things can play out. They really try to force you down one path, and I can't really talk about it too openly without just spoiling everything, but they definitely try to get you to go one route, and I haven't had time to really test it to see if there are totally different outcomes available to players, but it's at the very least somewhat interesting. There's a couple of big crazy moments towards the end, not what I was hoping would happen. And if you watch the stream or the supercut of the stream we did earlier today, you'll know kind of what I was hoping for. They don't really go that direction, but at the very least it's something kind of crazy and chaotic, which is better than I was braced for. I was worried that the end of this expansion would be like, okay, well, we've talked it out and now let's hug and move on. You know, they don't really do that, which I guess I appreciate. But listen, at the end of it, it's more Starfield. It's nothing more than that. There's a couple of interesting things they do in the first hour or so, and if you haven't seen Event Horizon, then you might find it really, really interesting and novel. But if you have seen that, you'll know exactly where they're going with all of it. But having said that, once you get into the actual expansion, you're going to be fighting lots of these little blue ghosty ghouly dudes and working your way through those. And then there's a couple of little quest lines that are very similar to what you did in the base game 1,000 times over. And then there's kind of a cool final mission where some stuff gets a little crazy, but that's it. And then it's $30. You know, I just really struggle with coming up with a way to justify the price point. Unless somehow I manage to finish this in some really wacky novel way that skips 20 hours of content, I don't know what there really is. He's clipped into the pipes. Help! He's stuck. Starfield. Nice. Starfield, ladies and gents. That's perfect. That is this game. I also think it's really interesting that Todd Howard has not been anywhere near this expansion's marketing campaign, and he normally is not really focused on marketing the expansions. He mainly focuses on the big, like, major release stuff. But at the end of this, I mean, I can't say I'm particularly surprised. BGS is pretty confident in what Starfield is, and this expansion is a continuation of that. It's not what I like, and I'm frustrated by a lot of the choices they made and how they're doubling down on those, in my opinion, mistakes and short-sighted design philosophies. But you know, if you really like the base game of Starfield, this expansion might be worth $30 to you. I just think if you're anybody
Oh yeah, it's not going to be worth $30 for anyone
who had frustrations with the exploration loop or frustrations with the sort of dry writing and not particularly interesting.
He's effectively he's trying to downplay how shit this is so hard. He's just he's trying to avoid saying, so yeah, this whole experience is complete garbage. It's complete crap. It's not even a game. He's trying so hard to avoid this. He's saying, this expansion falls short in the same way the base game did. So you're saying in every way. Writing, story, gameplay, talents, weapons, exploration, loading screens, dialogue, choices, crafting, everything. So you're effectively telling me this is not even a game at this point.
Characters and all that stuff, none of that's going to change in this expansion. It's not even really comparable to a Far Harbor or a Nuka World. It's its own thing, and it really is just kind of like a patch that adds some more Starfield for you to play. That, you know, happens to cost $30. It's not anywhere near as good as Far Harbor as far as I'm concerned. It's not even as good as Nuka World because it's not as interesting or wacky as Nuka World. It's just more environments that look exactly like you've done and what you've seen in the base game, but now there's sort of red fog around it, and that makes them.
By the way, you know what just hit me? I just thought of it. You have braziers and you have lit candles, which implies there's oxygen on this planet. But where the fuck is the oxygen magically coming from? I'm not seeing a single tree or a plant.
Different, I suppose. I will also say a lot of people were kind of frustrated by the reskins. There's many reskins in this expansion, not just for weapons, but also enemies and stuff. And I mean, even this like orb thing looks almost like a one-to-one like copy of some of the particle effects that they used in Skyrim for magic, which I find really funny that they might be just straight up recycling.
Yeah, it most likely is. I didn't talk about this because I also couldn't figure out, but the orb seems very familiar. It looks like the teleportation effect for Daedra and shit. When you summon them, you know?
Those little particle effects for these spheres when you fire them, which I just find really funny. You know, it's not even necessarily a bad thing. It's just kind of cool how these things could potentially tie together. I kind of love that stuff when stuff from old games ends up coming and being a part of the new. I think it's kind of poetic and very interesting. Oh, I keep missing it. Hold on, I got this. Boop. Maybe, nope. Boop. Nope. Boop. Man.
Sucks.
I can't hit it.
Also, why it's flying out of the system.
This is the most fun I've had playing this all day. All the way down. So anyway, a much shorter video than I thought I'd be making today on this
a much longer video than I thought that anyone's gonna make. Anyway, that was Luke Step instead out of 10. Starfield, bye-bye.